Welcome back to a new video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this mobile transition or motion graphics transition. I'm not exactly sure what you could call these, but it's basically a transition from you. It's actually similar to that goes if you have watched the first episode of the After Effects to DaVinci Resolve video, so you will be familiar with these. It is pretty simple, but you can make it and overcomplicate things as I tend to do. The first thing that you need is actually a picture with a transparent background of the device that you want to use or feature in your video. Now, in this case, there's a really cool resource from Facebook, which is, I'm going to link below and I'm going to show you on screen right now, where you can find a bunch of devices that you can use in different projects for things similar to these, like to feature your app or a software or any type of thing, basically. Now you can already see here this fusion composition. In this case, we're gonna create a new fusion composition. We're just gonna leave the name by default, and I'm gonna bring this here. Now here we have that media out, which is the first thing, and the first thing you wanna do is, as always, is to add a background. In this case, I usually would add a transparent background, but in this case, we can use any color that you want for the video. In this, we can use this bluish. And then the next thing that you need to do is we're gonna add a merge node. Now in this merge node, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a separate group of things that is gonna be the mobile phone. The reason for this is that if you connect it directly here, it's gonna create problems for the things that we wanna do in a little bit. Now the image that I have here is the Apple iPhone. Now here we're gonna press Ctrl and spacebar and add a transform, which is gonna allow us to change the size of our phone right here. We can connect these to the merge node here. But we're gonna do one more thing here in a second. First, we're gonna make these a little bit smaller so that it fits the screen where the way we want it to be. Now, the next thing we need to do is we're gonna add a background node, a new background node, which is going to act as the background of our device right here. You can choose whatever color you want. In this case, we're gonna choose this yellow so it adds a little bit of a contrast to our main background that we have here. Now, another thing we're gonna do first is we're gonna add a second background node, which is going to act as the actual background of this section. For that, we're gonna press Ctrl T so that we inverse these, and we're gonna make this first background transparent. You'll see why in a second. Here, we can disconnect these for 1 minute, and we're gonna go to the we're gonna select these. We don't have to. We can add a polygon here, and zooming in a little bit, we're just gonna rough draw a mask around our device. After the mask is done, we can connect this background again so that we can see it. Now we're gonna connect this mask onto our background here, and now we can see these like this. Now that is weird, and the next thing that we need to do is actually change these again so that this merge node is acting like that. So this section is gonna be the background, which is gonna be the things that are inside of the screen. Now in this section here is where you can add your text or anything you like, basically. Now we can go and add a text right here just for the demonstration purposes. I'm not gonna animate the whole thing because that will take too long, but you can play around with that later. In this case, we can just write app, and then we have, that is what it's gonna look like. Now, if we wanna make the thing go closer to the screen, we need to add a second transform node in between this section and the other section, which is our main section. Here, we're gonna zoom these into around 5.5 in this case is what works, but you gotta take into account that you'll see here it looks fine because it's a text. Now, if you have an outside image that is on your screen, when you're zooming in, it might look a little bit blurry. Let's test it out with these media in, for example. You see, it looks a little bit blurry. It's not that bad, but it does look a little bit, it can look a little bit blurry. So you want to take into account that. Let's get rid of that. Okay, now here is where the animation happens. It's actually really simple. We're only animating this transform. And in this case, we can animate it going backwards. If you want the phone to rotate, then you also have to make sure that this text that you have here or the image that you have here, it's aligned. If you want to do the transition from sort of like horizontal to vertical, then the text in the example that I showed, if you have seen the community post, you will see that the text is actually like this. So in this case, we can actually animate. Let's just do it. Okay, I am going to set the rotation of this text at 90 degrees. Actually, it should be minus 90 because here we're gonna do that same thing, minus 90. Actually, it should be 90 here. Sorry. Now we're gonna add that 5.5 here to the size again, and we have that. Now what we want to do here is we're gonna add a keyframe on the size and the angle, and then it's up to you how many keyframes or the duration that you want it to have. It's gonna be like 20 seconds probably, 20 keyframes, 20 frames, sorry. And we're gonna make the size go to 1 and the angle is gonna go to 0. Now we can do that same there, but if we wanna add a little bit of a sort of like a delay, that will play, I think, better. So we're gonna rotate our app to be vertical, like normal again, I guess, here, but not in the same, not from 0 to 20, but from like 4 to 22. So there's a little bit of a delay there. We're gonna create the keyframe here at the set or Z. On 22, we're gonna bring this back to 0, and we're gonna go. After that, the animation is pretty much done. You'll see how the app looks a little bit interesting when it's rotating at the same time. So it adds a little bit of a cool effect to it. Okay, now that we have that, that is pretty much how you would transition from that closer view that it looks just like a normal screen view to that mobile view where you're seeing the phone. And the next thing is to make it look a little bit better is we're gonna select all of them and go to the spline tool here and press right here so we can see them here, and then press Ctrl A. So all of the points are going to be selected, and then we're going to press F. You can also press T and then adjust the ease in and ease out options to your liking. And then that's going to make the animation a little bit smoother, in my opinion. Some people might not want to do more linear stuff, but I think it looks a little bit better when you add a little bit of a curve in the spline. And if you want to make it faster, then you can just adjust the keyframe where the animation ends right here. But just got to make sure that all of them are adjusted so that they're not sort of odd. Okay, now that we have that, we can also add a drop shadow. In that case is what I did in the example that you saw, but sometimes people might not like to have too much drop shadow. I think in this case, it adds a little bit of depth, and that's why I liked it, but it has to be a little bit soft so that it's not too strong. Kind of obvious, right? Now, one last thing that I want to show you is that if you want to showcase an app or an image of your software, because I said that's what I'm doing in this case, that's what the project is about, is you want to add the image to fit in this place right here. In this case, we're going to use this vertical version of the MB titles, one of the promo videos I was working on too. And here you'll see that it's a little bit too big, right? And in this case, we have to add a transform node, and we're going to make this become a little bit smaller so that it fits on our screen like that. In this case, I guess it was not designed for an iPhone 11, whatever. Okay, now it looks a little bit odd, and if we leave it like that, it's not gonna look fine. To fix that, we're gonna use this same polygon that we used earlier at the beginning, and we can just connect this to the merge node. We're not gonna connect it to the media in, because I'm gonna show you one thing in a second. Here. Now, if you had transitioned from another screen that had a text or something, you might want to add sort of like a transition of the actual mobile view coming in or just fading in and out, right? If you want it to fade in, just go to the merge node and adjust the opacity here so that it just transforms like that and it looks like a mobile view. If you want to be a little bit more, I guess, complicated, what you can do is you can either use the transform node or you can use this merge node, and we can add a keyframe here for the center and then a few frames forward. Let's do 6 frames or 7 there. And we're going to go to the first one, and we're going to make these actually come from the bottom. Here again, we're going to go to the spline tool and press F. And if we press play, it's going to sort of like transition inside the phone view. And now we can see that the video is playing here. And then you can add more things. You can adjust and add more movement to the device that you're using. You can add more movement or just transition the whole thing out. If you want to go to a second screen where this is not here again, we can simply use this merge node and we can take these out of our screen right here to the side. So the whole thing goes out, and you can just add the next section. And then after you make it go out, you are pretty much done in this case. Now, the last step is actually really just motion blur, which is really up to you. And for that, just go to the different elements that you have animated. In this case, the merge node and the transform node. And we also animated the text node. So we're gonna go to the settings for each of those, and we're actually gonna activate the motion. And then we can preview these, and we're pretty much done with our simple mobile transition that you can use for explainer videos or any kind of video in which you want to showcase how something will look inside a mobile screen. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. I hope it's helpful and that it inspires you to create something cool. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give a like. Check the links down below for the resources mentioned in this video. And that is it for me, and I will see you in the next video here in SUALVI. Bye.